Greetings viewers, EricTheCarGuy here. And today we have somewhat of a special episode, and this is hopefully going to prove or disprove a point that I've made for some time about modifying vehicles. One of the best modifications, in my opinion, is upgrading to steel braided brake lines. Why? Because it gives you a better brake pedal feel. Now, it doesn't make your brakes work any better, but it makes the brake pedal feel more firm, more secure. And that's what we're going to do to my 1993 Acura Vigor that's behind me. I got these from buybrakes.com. They provided these for us today, and I'm going to try it out. I'm going to try to show some empirical evidence that my theory that steel braided brake lines are a really good upgrade. And if you think upgrading your brakes isn't necessarily sexy and you'd rather go faster, think about this. You can brake a lot later in the corners and still go faster. So brakes are important too. Let's find out if I'm right. Here's the way I've decided to gather empirical evidence as far as the brake pedal height, is I'm actually going to measure the height to the floor in the same spot. Now, I'm going to start the engine and let it run, because without the power brakes active, it's not going to depress in the same way that it normally would. And I want to try to get it as close to what it normally would be as possible. Okay, just sitting here static. It's roughly 5 inches off of the floor, but I'm just going to depress it now, find out how far it goes down. And we need to get about a 2-inch travel. Let's see what's inside the box. And by the way, you're probably wondering, Eric, where did you find a brake line kit for the Acura Vigor? Well, Acura Vigor is pretty much a Honda Accord, and there's plenty of those out there. And like I said, buybrakes.com hooked us up. There are 4 wheels, and I have like 6 brake lines. And I think that's because of the rear. I think what's going to happen in the rear is we'll get like a split in the back there. A couple of stickers, yay. Tops of these things remind me of Smarties. You ever eat Smarties? I'm going to use my Kung Fu to remove the wheels. Wow. So my Kung Fu is awesome. Many times when I'm doing brake jobs and things, I often employ the use of these vice grips with little pieces of fuel line on the end to pinch off the brake lines. I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to be able to do that on steel braided brake lines. You cannot perform that on steel braided brake lines. There are several viewers that made a suggestion, and that suggestion was to take something and jam the brake pedal to the floor and leave it there while you work. This will prevent any fluid from leaking out of the master cylinder as you work. In this instance, I think that is an ideal thing to do. To prevent a mess on my floor, I'm just hooking this up. There. I'm going to take this, not fully extended yet. A trick that I like to use is the power seat mechanism. I just move it forward, and it's bottomed out. Now I close the bleeder valve off. Ooh, that fell right in the bucket, which is very fortunate. But now when we remove lines and things like that, we shouldn't have any issues with brake fluid leaking out. And because we use this, we didn't introduce a whole lot of air into the system. My hope is that we don't have to do a whole lot of bleeding when we're done. While I'm loosening the other parts, the most important thing that needs to come loose is the brake line fitting up here, and also that other little clip. 2 10mm to hold the front of the line on. If these have not come apart before, I can't stress enough how penetrating oil is your friend. The idea of blocking off the master cylinder or depressing the pedal all the way is working flawlessly. There's no fluid dripping out of here at all. Probably the most critical one, and I insist you use a line wrench when you do this. Open-end wrenches, as you use them, will tend to spread apart. These are designed to wrap around the fitting. And also there's the possibility that it's rusted to the brake line and the brake line starts to twist. Not so good. Hopefully the penetrating oil has done its job and we won't have to worry about that. And we don't. This is held on by one of these clips. It's a spring clip. As it's pushed on there, the spring tension holds it up into place. Remove the clip and the whole thing should fall out. I employ a lot of methods with this. Sometimes I start with a pry bar, and sometimes I need to go a little farther. Actually no. I was able to pull that right out of there. Now that it's loose, I should be able to just pull it right out. Our first brake line removed. Side by side, I have the old brake line up against the new brake line. And this is why this works. So you see, the old brake line is made of rubber, so it's flexible. This steel line is flexible, but less flexible. It's also a great deal thinner. I should also say that this is the outer coating. There are several layers to this brake line, and it's probably about this diameter down underneath. But the reason why you get a better brake pedal feel out of these steel braided lines is quite simple. This rubber, as you depress the brake pedal, has force applied to the inside of it because of the hydraulic pressure of the brake fluid pressing against the inside. And every time it does this, it expands a little bit. And because of that expansion, that translates to that brake pedal feel that's a little spongy, a little mushy. This line will not do that. This line is wrapped in steel, so there's no place for that expansion to go. The only place for the force that you're applying to the brake pedal through the master cylinder into the brake caliper goes through this line. There's no expansion here. Because there is no expansion here, that's what equates to a better brake pedal feel. Once again, your brakes aren't going to work better. You're going to have a better brake pedal feel. And in some ways it might work better, but you know, I'm not going to make that argument. I'm basically going to say it's going to feel better more than anything else. First brake line going up into place. But I'm just going to get the line started before I do any locking down of any of it, because you want to make sure that you don't cross thread this. If you do, you'll be replacing a brake line. And that's a hard brake line, and that's a bit more involved than what we're doing here today. I suppose I'm also going to have to track down whatever wrench size this is. Size of this is 19 on these. I'm going to build this from the inside out, and I'm doing this for a very specific reason, and that is if I have to bend the line or twist the line in some way, I want to do the least amount of bending or damage possible when I do that. So I'll start at the back and work my way towards the front. Now this should twist back around like this and then come back up to here is what should happen. And I'm going to make that happen because we've lost one of our connections in there. I'm not happy about that, but I believe I can make it work. This is a straight shot. If it was angled to one direction or the other, that would be significant, but it's not. It's a straight shot like this. I wonder if our new banjo fittings are also 14. Yes, they are. They were nice. 2 new washers. I'm not going to tighten everything down until I have it all in place. These I will tighten down because they're fungible. I want this connection back. I think that looks freaking excellent. For the final, I'm using the tubing side. You don't need to go super tight, just tight. Until now, we do a new clip. Once it bottoms out, you're good. It's not going anywhere. Let's move on to the next wheel. Something I'm working very hard to avoid is, initially when this was in here, it's got this tight bend. I don't want that tight bend. I want nice sweeping arcs with these brake lines. Nothing that's going to kink or bind as the wheel turns. It's all going to work like it's supposed to. I'm going to knock these back ones out now. Same drills up front, starts penetrating oil on the brake lines themselves, and then on the fittings. My pan underneath catching the drips. It's a 12 millimeter. Now it doesn't say specifically what direction this goes in. I'm gonna put it in there like this. Encounter any resistance, stop, try again. I was about to reconnect the other side here and decided that I liked it better this way with this little spacer plastic protector piece on the back side. If I kept it up here like this, it wouldn't really be doing much anything, but back here, if it hits against the control arm or something, I'm just honestly being overly picky. All right, now I'll attach this side. And install the clips. As I said, I wanted to put this someplace to where if it came into contact with the lower control arm or something, it could do some good. If it was up here, well, that's a pretty label, but that's just fine there. Now for the second half. Yay, penetrating oil. There's going to be some fluid coming out of the caliper, so I've definitely got my bucket in position. Washer stayed put. You want to make sure that the washer comes off, because if it doesn't and you double washer this, it won't bode well. And now the line. New line. Just want to make sure that's not a left and a right proposition. It's not. I'm not really liking how this is backed right up against here, so I'm going to try to bend it ever so slightly, just a little bit. Try to get it up away from that. There we are. Now it's not touching. The other side is just a mirror image of what we just did. So I'm not going to show all the detail on that side. I'm going to go through that side a little bit more quickly. But you've seen the basic setup here. Now we need to go around, bleed everything out, check the pedal. We're going to put Brian in the driver's seat to pump the brake pedal. I'm going to go around to each one of the wheels and bleed them individually. We're going to remove our rod depressor kind of thing, top off the master cylinder, and do the deed. I'm really glad I put that lid on. I'm going to take a slightly different approach than a lot of people take. I'm going to start at the left front and go to the right rear, and then go from the right front to the right rear. Cuz. All right, pump it up, Brian. Yeah, hold it down. Hey, fluid already. Pump it up. All right, just a little bit of air, but we'll come back to that. I want to get all the wheels with a little bit of fluid coming out first. Oh, we're good. I have a video on changing brake fluid that I will add to the description of the video so that you can see more specifics on this stuff. Pump it up, Brian. Pump it. Hold it. Let's make sure that master cylinder's got fluid. If not, well, we gotta start over. Changing the brake fluid at the same time too. Not a bad thing. Up it. Hold it. How's that feel, Brian?
Pretty manly.
Really? I like manly. I'm gonna go around one more time, make sure there's absolutely no air. Then we will start it up and see how it feels then. Also make sure you use the correct brake fluid for your vehicle. It should be written right there on the cap of the brake fluid reservoir. And don't get it on the paint because brake fluid eats paint. Start it up, Brian, let us know how it feels. Okay, just okay? Yeah. Doesn't feel awesome? Brian says it doesn't feel awesome, so we're gonna bleed it while the car is running. Pump it. Hold it. Hold it. Pump it. Hold it. All right, shut it down. I'm gonna top this off, put the wheels on, take it out for a drive, and my trick in these situations is to take it out and slam on the brakes a few times in a parking lot, and that usually makes it right again. It's a good idea to look everything over before we take it out on the street and make sure that there are no leaks, no issues anywhere. So just check all the fittings and make sure you're good first before you go out on that first test drive. Okay, we're taking it out to my favorite little parking lot to firm up the brake pedal. Brian's right, it still feels pretty much like it did before. But in my experience, especially after you bleed brakes, I like to do what's called resetting the master cylinder. I've done a video about this, how to solve a spongy brake pedal. Sometimes you're just beating your head up against the wall, you got all the air out, you just can't figure out how to get your brake pedal back. Well, I take it to a parking lot, I slam on the brakes going forwards, going backwards, and that usually does the trick, especially if I'm able to activate an ABS. Four-wheel disc brake Hondas with ABS, this is typical. I hate to say it, but it is. But this usually cures it. The braking is still good, and my parking lot's full, so I'm only gonna have a limited amount of space to do this on. All right, here we go. Better already. Ooh, into the mud. I thought I was gonna have it that time. It was a few feet off. One more. I know it seems crazy, but this works. Yeah, it works. I dare say my brakes are working a lot better. Pedal feel honestly hasn't gotten a whole lot better. Pedal feel hasn't gotten a whole lot better, but they are there. Like when I hit them, they are. So I'm happy with that. I'll take it back to the shop, measure the pedal height, and see if that improved at all. We're back from the test drive. I'll be honest, I was hoping for more as far as the pedal feel goes, but I'm pretty happy with the brakes. All right, we started out 5 inches up here. It's going down exactly the same to 3 inches. It's exactly the same. So my hopes at the beginning of the video of getting a better brake pedal out of it, well, busted. Myth busted. Hello again, kids. I have an update for you. Since I shot the original video, I've gone back and replaced the master cylinder and also the front rotors and front pads. The brake pedal height has improved, and I'm here to show you that. There's more things that can contribute, apparently, than just the brake lines themselves. Still not really super happy with the result. It's not quite what I expected. I expected a much firmer brake pedal and much less travel.
However, the brakes themselves, I've been driving this for a while, are a lot more immediate, meaning that when you step on the brakes, it seems like the brakes react more quickly with these brake lines as opposed to the old brake lines. But let's be fair, the old brake lines are old and worn out. So even if I replace with rubber brake lines, I'm curious as to see if that would have the same effect as I've had here. But okay, so we start out at 5, and instead of going all the way down to 3 inches, we're at 3.5. So I did manage to improve it a bit with the addition of, like I said, the master cylinder and the front brakes, but it's still not exactly what I expected. So I was hoping for more. This is what I got. Maybe this is a rear caliper issue. I mean, this car sat for a long period of time, and I've been slowly bringing it back over the past couple of years. So there are other factors at play here. Now, back to Eric to wrap this up.
Steel braided brake lines. Not what I'd hoped for, if I'm honest. Once again, thanks to buybrakes.com for hooking me up with these. Now, the brakes stop great, but the brake pedal feels exactly the same. It doesn't feel worse. I suppose we can look on the bright side that way, but I was expecting more. In fact, the Nissan Sentra that I did some work on not too long ago for the Fixing It Forward series, that had steel braided brake lines on it, and I felt it immediately when I got in the car. It also did not have ABS. That might have something to do with it as well. But it didn't get worse. The brake performance seems to have improved, and that's all I can say. We didn't measure that before and after, so we don't have any empirical evidence to back that up. Pedal height remained the same. There's our conclusion. If you have automotive questions outside of what was addressed in this video, I'd ask you to head over to EricTheCarGuy.com. Welcome video there to tell you about the stuff we have there to help you. Google+, Facebook, Twitter, also Instagram if you wish to connect with me socially. I close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, stay dirty. Thanks for watching.